everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Dave's FootyCast. We're going to be talking about all things footy, from local footy to the AFL and everything in between. This is going to be a different podcast to It's a Dave Thing, which has been mostly talking about nostalgia. We did have the interview with Mitch Harwood, which you can go to daveharding.substack.com and you can check that out, or you can go to Facebook and follow my social media pages. And there's also my WrestleCast that I'll be doing some reviews, talking the world of wrestling, and also just doing a whole lot of stuff there. So if you want to go to It's a Dave Thing blog and podcast Facebook page, you can check that out, or you can go to my YouTube channel, just search up Dave Harding, and you can check out all the podcasts that I've done there. You can check out some other vlogs that I'm going to be doing. So everything I do is going to be up on social media and stuff, so hopefully you can check that out. If you want to check out my footy photos, Dave Harding Photography, you can check those out. You can see what I get up to during the footy season. I'm going to talk about that on my podcast as much as I can. Hopefully I'm going to get some local footy players on there, talk about all things SFL and hopefully some TSL, talk about the AFL, even talk about how good Collingwood are going. Yeah, right. So it's been very fun, you know. If you're not a Collingwood supporter, it's been fun. But if you're a Collingwood supporter, it's just been a very big nightmare just to see Collingwood go from the Premiers to being 0-3. What can I say about that? You know, I've said a whole lot of things on Facebook about it. I've tried to find some positive. I mean, there was some positives against St Kilda. They started to look a little bit better, but otherwise, Collingwood's start to the season has been very dismal, and I'm hoping that against the Brisbane Lions on Thursday night they can bounce back, but who really knows? They could go 0-4 and maybe have a chance to get our first win. Hopefully it gather around against Hawthorn, but I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch. I think that Collingwood really needs to figure out how they're going to get their first win and start playing some good football, and hopefully it's either against Hawthorn or against Brisbane Lions. I don't think they're going to beat Brisbane Lions at the way they're playing, and being at the Gabba, it's going to be hard for Collingwood because they haven't really won there in a long while. So it's just going to be fun to see how it goes and which of the two teams from the grand final get their first win first. So yeah, it's going to be a fun few weeks coming up for the AFL and for Collingwood as well. So hopefully against Hawthorn they get a win, but I'd like it against the Brisbane Lions, so then they go in together and with a win first. But we'll see how it goes, and we'll see if Collingwood can actually start playing some good football and start getting their team playing very well. I'm still not a big fan of gather round. I don't think that's why Collingwood's playing badly. I think Collingwood's playing badly because it's just playing badly. But I'm not a fan of gather round because the teams that play in gather round have got buys in different times. So once they get some momentum going, they have a bye, and then they've just got to restart again. So I think it's going to hold some momentum for some of these teams, and I think it's just a real bad idea. I know that GWS got the bye this weekend, so they go from beating West Coast and having a good start to the season to having a bye, and then they've got to restart themselves. So it's just going to be interesting to see if they can actually restart themselves after the bye and get going, because I know that in past seasons, some teams have had some problems after the bye and have lost their games after the bye. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And I guess the AFL wants to try this 0 round and try and get it going. So we'll see how it goes next year and see if they actually have the same teams or if they try to change it up a little bit. I know that people are going to say just because Collingwood lost in 0 round that I'm not a fan of it, but I'm not a fan of it to begin with. I was saying on Facebook before the season started that I wasn't a big fan of the idea of round 0, and I'm even less of a fan now. So I think that it's just a bad idea. I mean, even if Collingwood had won in round 0, I still wouldn't be a fan of it because I just think it's a bad idea. I think that it's just going to hold some teams' momentum, and I just don't like the idea, and I don't like the idea of round 0. I just think either start the season early or don't do it at all. So I just think that's it. So we'll see what the AFL does in the future, if this is a thing that's going to stay around or if the AFL is just going to dump it after one season. But it'll just be interesting just to see what the makeup of the fixture is in the future as gather round and round 0 has become a thing each year. I'd like to see gather round moved around to different states. I think that'd be a good idea, but we'll see how it goes in the future. I know that Perth is trying to get it, and there's been talk that some people wanted to see Tasmania get gather round when Tasmania comes in the AFL. It would be good for Tasmania football if we had gather round. It'd be good for the state economy. It'd be great to have so many different games in different venues, and it'd be good just to see all these teams playing in Tasmania. I mean, I know I'd like to see Collingwood play in Tasmania more, so that'd be great. So we'll see how that actually goes in the future and what actually happens with gather round as well. Speaking of Tasmania, this week they unveiled their logo, their name, and their colours. And to the surprise of nobody, Tasmania unveiled themselves as the Devils this week, also unveiling the state jumper as their very first jumper with the state colours. And a lot of people are not very happy with that. They think it's unoriginal and they're complaining. And they're also complaining about the way the map looks on the jumper. And a lot of people are just finding different things to nitpick over this. And it's just been a very interesting week. They've unveiled the foundation memberships, which has now gone to almost 200,000 people. So that's been a great start for this club. When a lot of people said that no one would support this club and the club would be dead in the water. So it's good to see so many people have decided to become foundation members. I know that a lot of these people aren't going to stick around, but at least it's something, it's something to build on, and there's something for the club, and there's a lot of money going into the club, and hopefully with the foundation members there's going to be a lot of people buying club merchandise, and there's going to be a lot of people that actually stick around and become actual members when the team comes in 2028. The obvious next hurdle for the Tasmanian team is getting the stadium up. It's going to be a bit of a battle for the next few months in politics, so it's going to be interesting to see how Jeremy Rockcliffe is going to get it done. I know that a lot of people are going a little bit negative on the election results since Rockcliffe actually won the election, but he's got a minority government and will need to do some deals with some other parties to try and get the stadium over the line. So it's going to be interesting to see how the political football is going to unfold over the next few months. I know that a lot of people still believe that it won't happen, but I firmly believe that it'll happen. I believe that we'll have our stadium, we'll have our team, and everything will go as planned. So it just means we have to wait a little while and have to just grit and bear it for a while. So hopefully in the next few months we'll have a actual answer as to what's going on, and hopefully the deals will be done, and yeah, it'll be great to see a Tasmanian team with a Tasmanian stadium and everything working out for the good. From there, it'll be good to see Tasmanian football actually start to recover from its last few decades of being, well, let's just say it's been in a bit of a slump. The crowds are gone, the players have been up and leaving, and a lot of teams have gone into recess. We've struggled to see some teams fielding. I know that Hobart will finally field a team in the SFL seniors this year. Claremont have lost a lot of players and they're struggling to field a side, so it's going to be interesting. I know that Glenorchy last year struggled to field a team and actually got a senior side, but they were thrashed every week, so it was a tough time for some teams, and even tough for New Norfolk, who had to struggle in the SFL last year as well. So here's fingers crossed that some players will come back to the competitions, and now that the SFL will be the premier competition in the Southern Tasmania with the Premier League and Regional League going, it'll be interesting to see how these go. Then in the north there will be a Northern Premier League set up, so that's going to be interesting as well. So it's going to be fun to see how the football landscape goes over the next 12 months now that the TSL will be phased out at the end of the year. I personally would prefer to see the TSL continue. I like the idea of the TSL. I know that a lot of people think that the TSL is not going to really be viable, but I think now that there's an AFL team and there's a reason for them to step from the State League into a VFL team into the AFL is going to be a great motivator for them to stay in the state and play in the state. So I think that it would be good just to keep the TSL around, and I don't really like the idea of the Premier and Regional League idea. I didn't think it worked the first time around, so here's hoping that it actually does turn out to be very well. It's going to be interesting to see how Brighton goes from the SFL to the SFL Premier League. I know that back in the day they didn't do very well, but I think they're very well structured now. They've got a whole lot of great juniors there, and they've done some great recruiting, so it'll be interesting to see how they go under Paul Kennedy in the new Premier League. They'll kick off next year with all the new clubs. There will be Glenorchy, Clarence, North Hobart, Lauderdale and Kingston, and then it'll also have Brighton that's going to be promoted, and then you'll have the SFL clubs take on the Regional League moniker next year, so it'll just be the same as it was back before the TSL came back in 2009. I'm aware that the president of the North Launceston Football Club, Thane Brady, is not very happy with the idea of losing the TSL, and I'm not very happy with it either. I think that it would be better just to keep the State League and to keep the players going from the State League into the VFL, into the AFL team. So I think it would be better to have a State League, but I guess AFL Tasmania thinks that it's better to have a regional competition in both the south and north, but I think that it'd probably be better having the best teams in the state playing in the State League, but I guess you can't really have that anymore, so we'll see how it goes. I think there's going to be some fighting over the next few months just to see how it goes in the last season of the TSL, so it'll be interesting. And speaking of the TSL, it kicks off this Friday with round 1, you'll see Kingborough versus North Hobart at the Twin Ovals. You'll have Lauderdale versus arch rivals Clarence at Lauderdale Oval. And you'll have Launceston versus crosstown rivals North Launceston at Windsor Park, with Glenorchy having the bye. So it's going to be a very interesting first round of Tasmanian football. There's also the SFLW kicking off this weekend. The SFL is still a week away. They've got their season launch this Wednesday night, but their league doesn't start for another week. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I think that Cygnet and Huonville are going to be the teams to beat. I think that you'll have Lindisfarne as a team that's going to be thereabouts, and maybe Brighton as well, because they've had a lot of recruits. I think also Dodgers Ferry will be thereabouts, and maybe even Sorrel as well, so that's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I'm still undecided on New Norfolk. I did see them in their very first practice game against Campbelltown. They looked very sharp and they looked very good, but I think that their opponents weren't that good as well, so it'll be interesting to see how they do. I think they've recruited alright, they've gotten the players back, so if they're not in the finals, they'll probably be knocking on the door as well. I think that Brighton and Sorrel will be knocking on the door as well, but I think that it's still going to be the Huon rivals, Cygnet and Huonville Lions, being the two teams to play off the grand final, with Lindisfarne thereabouts, because Lindisfarne has always been thereabouts. They're still been a very good side. Sadly, I think that Hobart and Claremont are going to be holding up the table. I think they're going to battle it out for bottom. I think maybe Claremont will be the ones to win the wooden spoon this year, so it's going to be another year of pain for them, unfortunately, with a lot of players leaving the club again. So it's going to be interesting, and Hobart's just got their senior teams back, as we mentioned, so that'll be interesting to see how they go. It's just going to be an interesting season ahead. Hopefully it'll be a good season as well. Be back again taking photos of the SFL as well, and I'll be hopefully getting some people from the SFL on my podcast to talk about local footy, which will be good, and hopefully we'll bring some results of the SFL and the TSL as well. I'm not going to be really covering the TSL as much because I won't be seeing much of that, but I'll try and keep up to date with that as best I can. Local footy has always been a passion of mine. I've always loved local footy. I've been going since I was a baby. I think my very first season would have been in a pram in 1985. Even though I don't sound very old, I'm actually almost 40 this year, so I've been going to local football for so long. I remember going to the 1999 TSFL Grand Final. Yes, that year it was the TSFL, it was the Tasmanian State Football League. It was almost the last year of that. 2000 became the statewide league, and that was the very last season of that because they decided to dissolve that at the end of the 2000 season, and in 2001 all the teams went back to regional football, so that was an interesting season. But back on to 1999, Glenorchy broke through for their first premiership in 11 years. It was a drought breaker with former Essendon player Paul Hamilton as coach, and just seeing Michael Stiles lift that premiership cup in his final season was great. A lot of players retired from that Glenorchy side, so it was good to see a few of them go out with a premiership. It has been a tough road being a Glenorchy supporter back in the 90s. Even as a Collingwood supporter in the 90s, it was very tough. Neither side actually really got to the great heights that they should have. I know the Collingwood won the 1990 grand final, but that's the only real thing they did in the 90s. They did have a finals appearance here and there, but it was just a whole lot of nothing in the 90s. And Glenorchy, well, they played off in some final series, but they just couldn't get over the line. I remember going to some games and watching North Hobart tear Glenorchy a new one every time. I know one time they had a Queen's birthday football game with Glenorchy North Hobart on a different day, and Michael Maple decided to run riot that day and kick about 5 or 6 goals, and it was just a terrible day for a Glenorchy supporter. So, yeah, there's been some good days and there've been some bad days, but there've been a whole lot of bad days. So, yeah, it's been a tough decade in the 90s. So, hopefully, with new players coming into the Glenorchy team, they start to turn it around and hopefully, they bounce back and they have a decent season. They've got some players coming back, so hopefully it'll be a resurgence for Glenorchy. Hopefully for Claremont they can have a resurgence too and have some players come back and start to contend for the finals again and bring back some of the glory days that they had back when David Hunt was coaching them as well. So here's hoping that local footy actually gets back on a great spot, because Tasmanian football has been so good over the years. You've had so many great players leave the state to play in the AFL. You've had a whole lot of players come from the AFL to play in the local footy, so it's been great just to watch a whole lot of great football over the years. And now we've got ourselves an AFL team after so many years of lobbying and trying to get a license, and it's just going to be good to see it. It's going to be great to have a Tasmanian team in the AFL, and I'm still going to be a Collingwood supporter. I'm going to be a Collingwood member, but I'm going to still be a member of the Tasmanian team as well, because I really want to see this Tasmanian team up and thriving, because we need this team thriving. We need Tasmanian football thriving, because Tasmanian football is a community thing. You've got a whole bunch of communities that enjoy their football, and football in Tasmania has been the lifeblood of the community for so long, and just seeing a whole lot of communities coming back to football has been pretty good, and seeing women's football in this state rise has been a great thing as well. Since the inception of the SFLW and other leagues up and running, and I think there's at least 100 new women's teams in the state playing all around the state, even at STJFL and NTJFA level. So it's been great to see women's football being one of the fastest growing sports in the state. So hopefully now that we've got a AFL team, we'll see a lot more kids coming back to football and sticking around in Tasmania to play football for their state teams, because no longer will they have to chase their AFL dream by going into state and hopefully getting recognised in the VFL, the SANFL, the WAFL and all that stuff. So this is going to be a great time for Tasmanian football, and it's going to be a great thing for the Tasmanian economy as well to see this team up and running. And then getting the stadium is going to be great. I think that it's going to bring a whole heap of new events to the state. We're going to see, musicians, we're going to see events and all that stuff coming to the state. So it's going to be great, You need this stadium. I've been a pro stadium person from the get-go. I've been a bit skeptical about where to put the stadium, but I think the Mac Point is a good place for the stadium. It's in the heart of the city, so it's going to be great for the state. So it's going to be good to have this stadium up and running and have this stadium going for the state team and for events in the state as well. It won't be just for the football, it'll be for events and other sports, so it's going to be great. As I've written on my blog, It's a Dave thing, I've been very pro-stadium. I've been saying how good the stadium's going to be, even posting on ProWrestlingDownUnder.com some events that could come if we have the stadium as well. Just recently, Perth Stadium actually hosted the WWE Elimination Chamber, and there were so many people there. So imagine the economy for Tasmania having an event from the WWE coming to Tasmania. You'll have the wrestlers coming down, they'll be staying in hotels, you'll have vans coming, you'll have all the people, spending up big here. So it'll be just a great thing for Tasmania to just have this stadium up and running. And I know there's a whole lot of people that are against the stadium. They're saying, what about housing? Well, this will bring a whole lot more money to the state, and we're going to have a whole lot of more housing built anyway. We've got housing developments going on as we speak right now. There's a whole lot of developments in New Norfolk, in Bridgewater, down the Huon and everywhere else. So we're getting more houses. The housing crisis is going to slowly ease itself. So we can have our stadium, we can have our housing, and we can have everything sorted. And then with the money that we get from the stadium, we can look at healthcare, and we can look at everything else that we need to improve in the state. So it'll bring more opportunities, it'll bring more jobs, and it'll bring more people to the state. So and then all that money coming into the state is going to be good as well. So I can't see any negatives for this stadium. I know it's a thing that people are going to say it's going to be an eyesore and all that stuff, but it's going to look nice. It's going to be in a very good spot. It's going to have everything we needed. So yeah, it's going to be great having a stadium and having the AFL team. So I don't see why there's going to be so many negatives there. But with everything, you're going to have people that are going to be against it. You're going to have people that are going to whinge and whine and carry on. So you just got to grin and bear it and just realise that this stadium is going to be the best for Tasmania. It's going to be the best for our economy, and it's going to be best for tourism and also for jobs as well. So I think that we just need to sit back, relax, and enjoy the stadium and enjoy the AFL team and the money that this team's going to bring into the state and all the money that's going to be generated by having an AFL team. Then you go to the trickle-down effect of having people going to the local football and a lot of people going to local footy clubs and spending money there, and just having a lot of money being pumped into local economies and stuff. So it's going to be good. It's going to be a great thing for this state, and I think that a whole lot of people that are against it need to just realise about the financial benefits that's going to happen in this state. And as I've said with Mitch Harwood in my It's a Dave Thing podcast, the benefits of the stadium is going to be good, and as I said in this podcast, the benefits are going to be good. So it's just going to be great for this state, and I can't see any negatives. I know people are going to say, well, what if it fails? Well, it's not going to fail. It's going to have a lot of people coming to the state. It's going to have a lot of people from the state going to events here, so it's going to be a great thing for the state. We're into the home stretch, so let's talk a little bit about the AFL and how good Collingwood was going in their defence of the premiership, which I know some people have been wanting me to talk about. I know that I've been trying to avoid that the entire podcast, but let's just talk about it. They're 0-3 at the moment. They're looking very bad at the moment, and it's not been a very good start to the season, but I think that they're going to turn it around. I believe that Craven Cray will find a way to turn it all around, and I don't know if they're going to really have a big say in finals this year. I think it's going to be very hard being 0-3 and going up against the Brisbane Lions in the grand final replay on Thursday night. It's going to be interesting to see how both both teams go, since they both haven't won a game yet. So, yeah, it's going to be a very fun one, but I think that either they're going to beat the Lions or they're going to beat the Hawks that gather around in Adelaide. So they're going to get a win eventually, and then probably start turning it around and start playing better. So, yeah, I'm not too concerned. I think they're not going to get the premiership defence, and back-to-back is always going to be a tough one, but, at least they got the premiership from last year, so that's something. But yeah, it's been a very rocky start for Collingwood, and a lot of people are starting to jump off the bandwagon. But I'm still on the wagon, I'm still supporting Collingwood. I'm still hoping for that win. Still hoping we can beat the Lions in the grand final replay and kickstart our season for 2024, so that'd be good. But it has been frustrating watching. I know that they started to play well against St Kilda, so that was a positive, but just watching the whole start of the season has been a bit frustrating to watch. But that's just footy, you get your good days, you get your bad days, and sometimes you get some really bad days. And I'm not going to talk about the umpiring. I know that a lot of people want to talk about that and say how bad it was. Yes, the umpire was bad, but I think Collingwood was worse, and we lost because we played badly, and that's not the umpire's fault, it's Collingwood's fault. We played badly, we deserve to lose, and St Kilda deserve to win. And we're going to talk about all of these issues that happened, the out-of-bounds goal that wasn't called, but you can't really just go off on the umpires all the time. They're out there to do the job. Sometimes they have bad days, they have good days, and they make mistakes. So you can't just keep blaming them for your team losing. Even though the free kick count was very one-sided, I think that Collingwood just weren't good enough on the night, and it was just a bad night. So St Kilda were very good, and they got their win, so they deserved it. So let's just move on. Hopefully against Brisbane, Collingwood can bounce back and start showing some more signs of improvement and get a win finally for this season. So this past weekend, I got myself into a bit of trouble discussing Jack Ginnivan in a group chat. Some people thought that I was going a bit harsh on him because he's a former player and I shouldn't be talking about him. But I feel that if you're a player, no matter if you're a former player or not, that you discuss their performance. And I thought that Hawthorn were looking a little bit lost there early in the game against Melbourne, and I thought that Ginnivan could have done better, but he did better after that, and he started to play well. I don't hate Ginnivan. I'm still a big fan. I still wish he was at Collingwood, but I get why they moved him on, and I get why he's not at Collingwood anymore, but still, I still like him, and I still don't wish him any ill will, wish him all the best at Hawthorn. But, I just wanted to comment on how he was playing and how he was looking, and also how Hawthorn was looking at the time. And I think people need to realise that you can talk about former players without actually having any hate attached to it, because I don't hate any of the former players that played for Collingwood that are now playing for other teams. I like to talk about them, I like to discuss how they're going, and I like to discuss how the Tasmanian players are going, and I also like to talk about how Collingwood players are going in general when they're playing at Collingwood. But I don't really find any time to hate them. They're former players for a reason, and I hope that they have success at their new clubs. Not too much success, because I want Collingwood to win premierships and that, but I wish that they'll do well, but you get some moments where some people think you're just hating on players because they're former players, but that's just not me. I'm not a person that's vindictive at all. I like to wish everyone the best and, watch them do well. I mean, I don't want them to do well against Collingwood, but otherwise I wish them well. I haven't fully talked about any of the former players lately. I've been trying to avoid talking about AFL because Collingwood has been very bad. So I'm not wanting to be talking about how Collingwood's going, even though people keep bringing it up and keep tagging me in posts on Facebook. So thank you for that. So that's pretty good. No, banter's fun, I'm in a group, AFL Addicts, and I'm getting banter about Collingwood. I was in AFL Banter Nation as well, getting some discussion about footy and stuff, and people going on about Collingwood being 0-3, and also bringing up that somebody posted last year how good Geelong were being 0-3 and stuff. So yeah, sometimes what you say comes back to bite you in the butt, but yeah, so I'm not going to try and, say anything bad about anyone, on this podcast. Just want to keep it all positive, even though I was a bit negative about Collingwood and the gather round. But otherwise, this podcast has been about talking about the Tasmanian team, the Tasmanian stadium, and everything local footy. I'm looking forward to footy starting in the state. It's going to be great. It's going to be great seeing how the TSL and the SFL goes this year, and even the other leagues. Even though I'm not involved in any of the other leagues, the ODFA, the Old Scholars, and also the NDFA, the NWFL, and all the leagues up north. It'll be interesting to see how they go now that they're going to be merging into one Premier League and regional sort of league up there. So that's going to be interesting in the future, so it's going to be good. As you know, on the last episode of It's a Dave Thing, we interviewed Mitch Harwood from Oatlands, He went from being an umpire to a player, and so he's playing in the ODFA this season. So looking forward to hearing how he goes, and hopefully we can have him back on the podcast as well, and we can talk about how he's going and he's tracking in the season. So it'll be good to see. So hopefully we get some news on how he goes when the ODFA starts up this year too. So that's almost a wrap here for the first day's FootyCast. I know there was talk mostly about Tasmanian football and the stadium and stuff, but it's been good. The week started off with the Tasmanian team being announced, their colours and the foundation memberships, and now they're up almost 200,000 members, so it's been pretty good. So it's going to looking very good for the Tasmanian team, and hopefully the memberships rise, and hopefully they can keep a lot of people on board when the actual memberships start up, when the team comes into the league. Currently they have the most members, if you count the foundation memberships as official membership tally. I know Collingwood has over 106,000 people as members, so that's been pretty good for them. So it's good to see Tasmania doing very well, and it'll be interesting to see how many actually do stay on once the official memberships start. And then after Easter, we get merchandise starting for the Tasmanian team, so we'll see how that all goes. They'll probably sell out very fast, so you'll have to get in very fast for that. And let's just talk a little bit about the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers. I know it's not footy or related or anything, but how good was Jack McVeigh's shot there and winning the Game 3 of the NBL Championship? They're now going into Game 4 this Thursday night, so it's going to be good to see how Tasmania goes. Hopefully the Tasmanian team can actually get a win and win the title. It'll be their first title ever. They've been in the league for 3 years now. This is their second time in the NBL finals, so it's been pretty good. So that's 2 finals in 3 years of being in the NBL, so that's pretty good. So let's see how they go in the championship match on Thursday night, and hopefully there's no Game 5 and they win it in Game 4, so that'd be great to win it on Tasmanian soil. Tasmania didn't really do very well in the Sheffield Shield, which I didn't think they were going to do very well, so West Australia won that, so that was very good for them. So, it hasn't been all bad for Tasmania. We've got the new team, we got the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers doing very well, but cricketers just couldn't get the job done, which means former Test player Matthew Wade goes out with a loss there in the final, and hopefully he does well in his life after cricket. He did play some football for the Tasmanian Devils VFL side, and he played for Clarence in the TSL, or a version of the football in Tasmania. I don't remember if it was the TSL or not, but it was very good that he had a very good footy career. It was very short, but he turned to cricket. Like a lot of players here, they've got dual careers in cricket and AFL, so it's been pretty good. He'll probably play for the Hurricanes, so hopefully the Hurricanes do well and can start winning some games and actually challenge for a title, because they have not done very well in their few years in the competition. But that's going to be a conversation for maybe It's a Dave thing and not my FootyCast, because we're starting to talk about cricket rather than football. So maybe we can wrap it up there. I'm going to record another episode of It's a Dave Thing with Joel. We're going to talk about maybe movies. I haven't really decided on that. Then I'm going to record my WrestleCast. I'm going to talk about WCW's Beach Blast 92. I'm going to review that, so that's going to be fun. So it's going to be some fun times coming up. So hopefully you can subscribe to my Substack. You can go on my social media pages, and hopefully you can follow what I do and keep listening to my podcast. So thank you very much for joining me for the very first day's FootyCast. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully our second one's going to be even better. So thank you and goodbye.